Hope you're all doing well and enjoying whatever it is that you do on Christmas Eve day. We're doing this. First of all, thank you for all the help you've given us over the year, for me personally as a teacher and for this community to support us to keep things moving along. Please continue to help us if you can. So again, today I am going to do what I've kind of named Mountains and Rivers, which means you ask questions and I try to respond in a helpful way. If you have no questions, then I guess we'll do something else. Or maybe I'll ask a question of you. Is there a question about meditation practice, about the Dharma, about awareness?
When you're bowing, you up.
Can you hear me? You can, okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Onyo.
You often recite or tell us about on the 16th Karmapa's deathbed. He told the Vajra regent nothing happens.
Yes.
How are we to understand that teaching, bowing?
My understanding of that teaching, which I contemplated for a long time since I first heard it, is that it was a direct pointing. He was getting ready to pass on. So it was a direct pointing at the nature of what this is for all of us. Nothing happens. And so he was pointing at that what appears to be happening is an illusion and nothing actually occurs. This occurs relatively. This goes up relatively, comes down. You can throw it away. You can make a new one. The world is full, needless to say, of lots of tiny little items everywhere, starting with the glomeruli in your kidneys. Little tiny specks of everything. Sands of the Ganges is classically referred to sometimes. Lots, but this is all unreal. So His Holiness, speaking to the Vajra regent, Ursula Tenzin, was saying nothing happens. As I recall being told the story, the Vajra regent was weeping when he was told that by His Holiness Rangjung Rikpe, the 16th Karmapa. Different ways of talking about it, but one of the ways is to talk about it is that what appears as an illusion gets its energy to be that singularity, that Kotsu, this computer, these two people. They have no separate identity. They are dependent on everything else for their apparent singularity or appearance, and that none of that lasts. It shows up and goes away. So it has a kind of reality that is that will push back if you push on it, that will run away if you try to grasp it, and that will sneak around the corner if you try to ignore it and sneak up behind you, to say it many different ways. But it's fundamentally unreal, and you can't know this with the intellect. You can't, by conjecture or something, come up with some kind of idea around that, although it is approached that way. If you look at the 30 verses of Vasubandhu and lots of other teachings that are pointing to the unreality of the relative appearance, the illusion of the world that we are deluded by. So the only way to talk about what makes it unreal is to use more of the unreality, in other words, relative truth, to keep pointing at it different ways. But if you see what this is, then you will know it. And you won't have a doubt about it. There will be no one left to doubt. The singularity that is a big issue is belief that there's a separate being from everything else. We think that we are somebody that's threatened. We think we are somebody that's better than others, that can think better, be more clear, is better looking, has more money, which is relatively true. More about it if you have it. Let's go there.
Andy, bowing. So is what makes something illusory the fact, or just that it moves or changes?
All of that. That would be a way of approaching it. It's impermanent. Goes up and goes away, or it looks this way and then it looks that way. And the way we the way the self-centered mind, that identity that is unreal, that part of consciousness that identifies with the body. That's why Dogen in the 13th century and other teachers too have said it in different ways: drop off body and mind. So it doesn't mean get rid of the body, get rid of the mind, but see that those are unreal, and observe the attachment to the body as being something, somebody. Look at the thoughts and ideas as being that they belong to somebody. They do not. But I could lecture you and say your thoughts are not your own. You don't own anything. You don't have anything. Who you are is consciousness only, fundamentally consciousness only, which has no positions, yet doesn't miss a single position anywhere. Sees all of the alternations coming and going, and knows this is unreal. More?
Andy, where does the belief in the solid self come from?
Fear. There's a fear of too much room, too much space, because there's a singularity of identity in consciousness that is curled up into just a way of talking about it, into a structure that is identified with the body, the nerve endings, that is somebody, someone. We have a name, we have a culture, we have everything we're told, all of our things that our parents told us are that set up structures in our society and culture, that right and wrong, should be and shouldn't be, all of the crazy politics that go on. And so we buy into this, we clamp down on this, we fixate on that out of fear. And that fear is out of being nobody, out of being any number of things, worthless, or out of being threatened, out of any kind of otherness that shows up in that area. We want to cover that up. And if we hear the truth from a teacher, then that teacher is saying to you, you're not separate from anything, and you can't be threatened. Who you are can't be threatened. So the identity would, instead of being all identified with these nerve endings, you don't ignore them either. But as far as being identified that this is me and my feelings, and I've been hurt by this person or abandoned by this person, all of these stories that we come up with that we think are so real, we see through that. And this doesn't mean that you stop feeling. So that's what the ego would look for. Well, if I was transcending this world, or if I was seeing the true reality of non-duality, then I would see through it and I wouldn't have any emotions or feelings. No, you might have more of them. You might have everybody's feelings. Everybody you meet, you feel that all the way down. And the only way you could possibly do that without it completely crushing you is there isn't anyone. It's like you start to fall and you never hit bottom. There is no bottom. That's the fear the ego has of being locked in or trapped or controlled or brought to his or her demise. More?
So the fear itself, or the fear generates the sense of self.
I'm not sure if you can be that direct about it, but if that's the dance that happens there, that is based on hope and fear. I want something better. This is something worse. You're getting something. It's getting better. It's going away. That's why I say, if you hear me, if you listen to me, don't try to fix yourself. Don't correct anything. See what it is. Because if you try to fix it or correct it, you may have some success. And it's not that you shouldn't have some. If you need that, then you should do that. But eventually, if you're on the spiritual path, eventually you have to see through that, not let it go. You let it go. You let something go. Then you reify the one who has let something go, and that which you've gotten over. Finally, you've overcome your issues. This is first noble truth. First noble truth. Life is suffering. That may back off. It may change. It may turn on its side, but it probably is not going to go away. It will still be an illusion. More.
Andy Bowing, is the suffering fear?
Well, certainly tied up with that. What do you want to know about that?
I don't know what I want to know.
See, that's what I'm saying. You're going into those structures, and so I could go there with you, but then we end up kind of conversing back and forth about that. There. suffering is it's an interesting area because, interesting area because the ego, if as long as the ego can claim the suffering and say that I'm angry, I'm have anxiety, or I'm jealous, or I'm feeling disrespected, or I'm abused or anything. It's not that relatively isn't happening. It is, and that's what we want to buy into, and that's where we want to go in and fix it and change it because it's relative. We can get a hold of that. Well, at least we know. At least I know what it is. And at least I know who caused it. Why? So at least, excuse me. Where there's a spiritual path, looks at it and sees that as a complete fabrication. It is unreal. So if we go to the concept of the suffering or the concept of the fear, you can change that around different ways to give the illusion or the feeling that you have a deeper understanding of it relatively. But what I'm saying you should do is just look at it. Whatever shows up, it's just like food. It's just like life is serving you. Let's just use the sense of eating. Whatever shows up, eat it. Whatever shows up, receive it, receive it, receive it. So that you can see, so that the consciousness that is, you could say, attached to, trapped in, or temporarily stabilized in a self who's going somewhere, a being, a body, a mind, if that starts to come apart, as Dogen said when he translated, or not Dogen, but the Kobuchino Roshi said when he translated the Heart Sutra, falling apart, falling apart, falling apart, nothing to do, everything all at once. So just all the polarities just came apart. That's happening. That's happening to you when you're practicing, but and so it's necessary to have someone to encourage you to keep going. That's what I'm here to do. Yes.
Divine. So then are the emotions and suffering that show up unreal because they're of the identity attaching to them?
Makes them more like I'm the one who's upset. If you can just watch what shows up in dependent origination, whether it's anger or resentment or depression or anything we give names to, and don't do anything with it. Don't claim it. Don't reject it. Don't ignore it. Passion, aggression, and ignorance. It's just that. It's very simple, and it's very, very difficult to deal with in a way that doesn't buy into some kind of relativity that wants proof, that wants a structure, that wants. Right back to the second noble truth, wanting something else. It's never enough. If we have the explanation, it's never enough. Go ahead.
Divine. So then relatively emotions and suffering are real, but fundamentally nothing happens?
Fundamentally, that's their consciousness. The area in the consciousness that's there right now, there's nothing happening there unless you crank something up. There's not anything happening. This is what the practice of Shikantaza is introducing you to, is just a complete open dimension where nothing is occurring at all. Takes a while. Go ahead.
Divine. So then the illusion is us getting caught up in our attachments and whatever is showing up.
Yes.
But in consciousness itself, there is nothing that is showing up, or
What is showing up is unreal.
only illusion shows up in consciousness.
Yes. Reality can't show up in consciousness because consciousness is reality if you use relative terms. At the same time, and because of the reality of non-dual or not two, even what arises in consciousness is also consciousness. But we need to start someplace. So let's start with just watching what moves. So that you see what the movement, you see the thoughts, the ideas, the emotions, the anger, the irritation. And eventually you don't care how you feel. I'm not saying you don't care. I'm just saying that you're no longer trying to stop something from hurting. This doesn't mean you don't take aspirin. Not going in that area. I'm endeavoring to say that whatever shows up in consciousness is dependently risen. So it has a right, this is just a relative way of talking about it, to be there because it is generated by untraceable sources. uncountable. You can't count them because they're not separate from each other. They just look that way. More.
Wonderful. So when you say on the deathbed, he said nothing happens. Is that because there was no attachment at that point for him?
There was no attachment.
Jen Bowing. I have a holiday topical question. It seems like my identity feels less solid around family. It gets intermingled
Yeah.
in ways. And I'm wondering, is family a particularly powerful relationship on the path?
I think
the place,
go ahead, please.
just the place to receive, like to be most aware of receiving.
Yes, very much so. And the interesting thing about family is that's where, when we're born and we're growing up, that's where we start to get our first understanding of identity. And that's where we get trapped into getting our identity from what other people are thinking or doing or saying. Pretty conventional thing to raise children and so on, but sometimes that area gets really warped out of shape because of people's hope and fear and their desire to control themselves, and they can't control themselves, so they start controlling others. So they get some kind of security out of controlling, right up to including manipulating and abusing others so that they don't have to look at their own crap. This happens in families. I'm not telling you anything you don't know if you have had a family, and you probably have had something like that. So yes, coming back to your question, if you can just receive that when you're, take it as an opportunity as much as you can, and you don't have to OD on the whole thing. Just take whatever you can, and then excuse yourself and get away if it gets difficult, rather than go to war or fight with anyone. Receive what they're saying, receive what their comments, their criticisms of you, or their whatever may happen, may not be that, but any kind of interaction. Just watch the forms that move rather than add a story onto the form. The form that moves needs to be there. This right here needs to be there. And it doesn't have a special dispensation. It's just that it's part of dependent origination, the same as all of the thoughts and emotions that come up around anything at any time, in any place, in any locale. What we do that makes it worse is we add on our comments, we add on our personality. That's my feeling. No, it's not. Look closely. Look closely. It's very, very difficult to do. This is why it can take a whole lifetime of practice to understand that you are, as it says in the Sadhana of Mahamudra, you are not your own projections. You have to see it. If you don't see it, then you'll probably torture yourself and torture others without even really realizing you're doing it, and just feel justified, validated, vindicated by everything you do because you got a story behind it. And the story is just about as true as any murder mystery. Why we are entertained by things like that, because we read it or we know it, and we watch a movie and we know it's not true. It's invented, it's make-believe. So that becomes entertainment. But when it's in our own mind stream, that's also not true. Go ahead, Jen.
Jen Bowing. So I have the sense that these family relationships and my maybe receiving of them is a more potent, like the most potent relationship maybe in terms of the breakdown of the identity. Is that true?
If you can handle it, yes. Yes, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
I'm following up. I'm having the feeling like I should actually push myself harder to spend more time and not leave.
No. Don't go that far. No, it's very please just keep it situational. The only thing that I want you to exert as your teacher, the only thing I want you to exert yourself at, push on it, is get to that wall and actually get to the Sangha. In other words, the book study, which we've set up. And there are enough of them, you should be able to find one or two where you actually are interacting with people that you don't like. Have you noticed? Maybe not. But I mean, I'm not saying you dislike everybody, but if you discuss this kind of material with people that you just totally agree with, like some kind of political party or cult or something like that. That's different. We don't do that here. If you haven't entered into a book study, then you might want to try that. I know you have. I'm just saying people in general. And then get to the wall. But as far as making things worse on yourselves, going out and whipping yourself or something so that you can experience pain, that's the Buddha went through some of that himself. So we don't have to do that. You can just watch what moves and see eventually that it is both real and unreal. It's real because it's there. It's unreal because it doesn't last and because it has no substance to it. Go ahead, please.
Jen Bowing. I think one thing I've been realizing on this go round with family is the amount of projection I have about what's going to be. And then when I get there, I'm like, wait, I love these people. This is great. In a lot of ways. So in that sense, myself to kind of defy my predictions.
Okay, I would concur there. And yes, but don't take it as some kind of a discipline where you need to go in and work with your family or receive difficult situations. You can do a little bit, but then move away from it. But the way you're talking about it now, I would say it seems fine to do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very much.
We really just love people. It just might take a lot of layers of gunk for us to see through that we really love and respect people, even the ones that are really confused and are trying to toss their confusion onto us. Hard thing to see. Yes.
Wonderful. Jen's question made me wonder if, with the holidays and being around family and falling back into those old roles, can we undo what we've been seeing on the cushion?
Undo? What do you mean by undo?
Any sense of objectivity that we're noticing on the cushion? Can we lose all that when we go into those old roles, Bonnie?
I'm not sure if I'm following you. But what is it you want to know?
I guess it's assuming that sitting helps us see our projections and
Yes.
emotions more objectively.
You could say it that way, yes.
And so then when we go back into, a week with family, into our old roles, can we completely lose that objectivity?
Well, nothing lasts. So anything you conclude, like you're more objective. As soon as you do that, ego, that part of the consciousness that wants to survive is desperate to be somebody. They'll settle for being wrong, for being ashamed, as long as they get to be somebody who's wrong, who never can get anything right. So you have to be aware of the grasping of that part of the consciousness that wants to validate itself, including validating itself as being more objective. I'm much more objective now than I used to be. Don't bullshit yourself. When I say don't do that, just watch that grasping. Just watch the grasping rather than pushing it away, rather than agreeing with it. When I say don't bullshit yourself, I'm saying you may not be able to help that. But it's about bringing your awareness to an area of the consciousness that keeps telling stories on top of stories. The first story comes up, just receive it. But all the other things we lay on top of it so that it's more receivable and so that it's more obvious that it's somebody else's fault, one of our family members' fault. No one's to blame for this. All dharmas are without blame. Traditional teaching that's been around for centuries. You can't find the first cause of anything. Kayun
bowing. One way that meditation is taught a lot in New York City is manifesting, which makes me insane and angry, and I immediately
can I help you there? You were already insane and angry.
okay. Thank you so much. My question is, you also say not to ignore anything, and so I'm wondering if there's something about manifesting or visualizing things that is actually worth exploring, bowing.
Oh, I think it's definitely worth exploring. Awareness of what is coming and going and what is manifesting, what you're manifesting. I think the awareness part is very powerful, and the intention is very powerful, but it's looking for results for, yes, I have done this or I've done that. This is the area that gets just self-centered part of the mind, narcissistic part of consciousness just delights in having credentials that you're manifesting and you're doing something correctly, and finally you're valuable, or at least you're not wasting your time turning into a vegetable. More?
Kayin bowing. So is that almost the converse of what you were just describing about blaming, not praising either, bowing?
What does the word converse mean?
The sort of seemingly the opposite of it.
Is that why they call them conversations?
I guess so, because it pongs back and forth between two seeming people.
Okay, then yes.
Kayin bowing. What is I feel like I can see why blaming is bad, but what's the trap in praising people or oneself, bowing?
I say a little bit of that is accurate, because you're not ignoring dependent origination, so you are going to participate a little bit there. It's when we overdo it, too much praise. Too much praise is more about us being really an appreciative person, rather than actually acknowledging someone. You did. I like what you said up there. I like the work that you did on a carpentry project or something. So a little bit is workable, but then too much is more about reinforcing the person who's having that kind of an expression, more about identity, me, rather than praising someone. Sir.
Paushan bowing.
Paushan.
Sometimes when I'm facing the wall and I am seeing through my ego's thoughts, there seems to be a sense of false separation of like some super ego looking and going, oh, I'm being aware. What is awareness without separation?
You won't know you're aware. There'll be no knower of that. There's just knowing. There's just the fancy word is wisdom. There's just wisdom, and wisdom only sees wisdom, and it's like nothing happens. That's where that teaching comes from. But this happens. This is it's hard for me to talk about it, because I start to come apart if I start to talk about it. I can't talk anymore, because it's like a because. It's like you see something so clearly that you can't even comment on this anymore, because why would I comment on an illusion? It would be that kind of a question, if there even were a question. It's unreal. You see it vivid, as Trungpa Rinpoche says in the Sadhana Mahamudra, vividly unreal and emptiness, yet there's still form. Vividly unreal. Vividly unreal. It's that unreal. It's so unreal that that you feel it everywhere, all the time, everywhere, but there's no personhood there anymore. You've dealt with that. It might have taken you half a century, might have taken you 15 years, might have taken you 3 weeks. I don't know. But you that which sees is no longer and you're not even a human being. It's just consciousness only, and that because it does not start, because it does not show up, because it is unborn, it does not occur, it goes on forever. Just another relative way of saying something that can't come to an end if it has not had a relative beginning. Whereas the teachings of the Buddha, because it's a relative situation, are going to come and go. We're just very lucky we've stumbled into them here, I feel.
When you're bowing, what is it to see through our projections or our objections? 3 poisons. Bowing.
You just see that they're unreal. They're dependently risen, even though they're intense. And you don't. If you're seeing it, if you're seeing through it, then it just comes apart. Nothing else happens. You could say it just goes away, because it loses its position on stage. It's like to use paint a little picture of it. It's just like a person is on stage and they're acting and they don't like this and they like this and they want that and they don't agree, but they do agree. They're on there, and then suddenly the consciousness that was thought it was somebody just collapses. It just comes apart because it can't live without passion, aggression, ignorance, and therefore there's just a heap of clothes there. Empty. It's empty of itself, but there's still clothes. It's empty. There isn't anyone. There never was. And you can see this. You can liberate yourself. Your thought process you don't have to stop thoughts. You don't have to have thoughts without a thinker, although that could show up. But you just do this, intend to see this no matter what. Bring yourself. That's why we have the vows. Whether you do them officially or with a preceptor, that's up to you. But return to the teacher, the teaching, and the community. Those are the three that will support you as you go along. Some people need more of the community interaction, some need less, some need more of the teacher, some need less. Isan.
Isan bowing. This is a question about that the unborn.
Yes.
Question about walls of the mind. We have so many minds. The mind that is worried about the future and ashamed of the past and planning, effective. Is the unborn one of those many? Is the unborn in with those many minds that we're trying to? And when the walls drop, is it the unborn that is our place of refuge?
But there is no place anymore. There's no refuge. And when they drop, if you reflect on it for a moment, if you really see that it's unreal, then nothing has happened. Because if something has happened, then there's an occurrence, and there's a before and after of the occurrence. This is why this is so difficult and so challenging to do, to see the truth yourself. And if you see it, it's like nothing happened, because what the truth is that everything that you see is unreal. So, and that which sees that is consciousness only, or that which is unborn. It doesn't come into manifestation. So we went back and talked more about manifestation in the Bronx. You know, might have to go a different direction with it. I don't. More, Isan?
That was helpful. I think my question was not very articulate, but your response is very helpful. I think the only more would be the difficulty of all of those different ways the mind, the me, thinks and feels and emotes and plans, and what does it mean to live without walls between all those minds? Bowing.
Then they stop becoming other. They also don't suddenly become all the same. The positionality, the locality in time and space just comes apart, and we see that was a projection, that we actually produced an illusion of past and future, and identify with this body mind as somebody who's going somewhere, someone who's getting older, or someone who's getting more clear, or is more realized than they used to be. It's as I've said, my way of saying it, it's better than that, and it's worse than that, because it's not a success story. It's heartbreaking. And it's disappointing, as it says in my coffee cup, my other one. Disappointment awaits. It's disappointing. But do it anyway. Do it. Just do it. Just get your body mind complex to the wall and watch. Train yourself to see clearly, so when you are interacting the rest of whether it's your family or your community or your coworkers, whatever it may be, is that you're able to receive what is happening there, not only what they say, but who they are, what they fundamentally are doing in this situation. You would be able to see the way people are attached to their body-mind complex as a being, as a person. And that's really, I don't know if it's the only way, but it is a way that you see that you're not really attached. You're still a person. Your personality may be more outrageous than ever, because you're no longer concerned with how you look. You don't disregard people's ideas or opinions about you, but you don't believe them, and you don't live your life out of what people think you should do or shouldn't do. And it can be challenging in a family where you're with other people that have no mind training, or even if they do have mind training. It's still, if you realize what this is, there's the positionality, the locality just comes away, drops away. It may not go anywhere, but it drops away in the sense that it has no reference point. There's no reference point to it anywhere. I'm trying to think of a food image here. It's like, it would be like, what is that stuff they put on lemon cream pie? The white stuff on the top.
Right.
Meringue. It's like mind meringue. It's there, but you can't do much with it. But you could eat it. Just receive. Whatever it is, receive.
Thank you.
If you have a question, thank you, and you're welcome. If you have a question, please come this way with that, especially if it seems like it's if it's coming from Naveed, I'll take it. Go ahead.
Naveed Bowing. You say that nothing sleeps. So what sleeps when we go to sleep? Bowing.
Just the body goes to sleep. The body and the mind that depends on the body for its for believing in the illusion of space and time and so on. All that goes to sleep. But who you are never sleeps. Never sleeps.
Bowing.
But it won't have the relative thing of asleep and awake. It never sleeps, so therefore it doesn't have a contrast with something else. It's you're always here. You're always awake. Realize it. You can do that. I'm not here as proof of anything. It's not. I'm not proving anything. I won't. Proof is about relative stuff that is an illusion, and the world runs on this. Most of the world is just all in agreement of that. This is this, and this is that, and this should be this way. And we need things like laws, because there's so much confusion. We have to have laws and rules to keep certain kinds of energy in balance or in check, even. But that doesn't validate it that it's ultimately real. And this is a spiritual path, not a mundane path of success. Nor is it a spiritual path of failure. But it may seem like that for a while because it is so much different than the conventional spiritual materialism, where you're trying to get something, trying to get enlightenment, you're trying to get calmness, peace, serenity, kindness, equilibrium, generosity, karuna. You can't get any of that. More, Naveed?
Naveed Bowing. Is that mind that you just talked about that goes to sleep, is that our ego?
Yes. It's an aspect of it, yes. We go to sleep and we wake up. Go to sleep and we wake up. But who we are doesn't sleep.
Naveed Bowing. So is the ego always asleep? Bowing.
That's a trick question.
I mean, maybe just to talk about it relatively.
Yes.
In terms of being awake.
Yes.
It seems that ego is always.
It's to sleep to the truth. Ego, he, she, they think there's somebody going somewhere, either succeeding or failing or doing really well, not doing so well, getting better, getting worse. All of the variables are we could all go on and name that. Anytime you have any kind of a feeling, emotion, thought, if you push on it, ego. If you grasp at it and try to turn it around or explain it, ego. If you try to shut down, push it away, ego. If you do nothing with it, then it's just dependent origination showing up in a form in consciousness called what? Thoughts, emotions, just come and go. Very intense, sometimes pictograms in the mind stream that are looking for a self that thinks that way. And if you realize what this is, fundamentally realize it, then you're not concerned with the currents. What is your concern? If you're on this path of the Buddha's teaching, then you're concerned with helping others who are caught in the trap of the mirage of the belief in their own ideas, opinions, hope, and fear, right and wrong, up and down. The world is full of those people. Help them. And maybe the best way to help them is to just respect their confusion. That doesn't mean agree with them, but respect the confusion, because they're tied up in knots. They may not be ready to hear, maybe never, if you want to use that word, or maybe for 1,500 more lifetimes, if there is such a thing. And is there? Probably. Not necessarily on this ball of dirt. This one's probably coming to an end.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yuhong,
Go.
when close family members dump their negativity on others, it creates a separation, at least for me. I often, instead of observing, I often think of in their shoes. Is that a wrong, Baoying?
Could you say a little more, Yuhong?
Yes. So when I see close family members dump their negativities on others, it creates a separation, a bigger separation. At least it shows up for me. And at the moment, I'm leaving the fully observation. Instead, I try to think they're suffering or in their shoes. Is that a wrong?
No. What you're describing is just the way awareness can work this way and that way as you practice. Not at all. Just continue. It's more. I've said this different ways. I'll say it probably the same way again. It's more about being aware of what's moving in the mind rather than doing anything, right or wrong or extra. We don't need that. The only way you can do something wrong, as far as I'm concerned, is to not practice. And even that, I would have to respect that. I have people who asked me to function as their teacher many, many years ago. And I mean, 10, 12 years ago, and I haven't heard from them in 3 or 4 years. Is that wrong? No. They're doing what they need to do. From my point of view, I was not done. They were not done as a student, but things did whatever they needed to do, dependently arisen, and they went another direction. So it's not incorrect. It's just dependent origination. So my idea was to help people see the prison that they're building around themselves, and maybe they found a better way. Maybe they found a better teacher. That's possible. So, but there's nothing to correct. Anytime we start saying, well, this is wrong, well, you shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done that. Well, relatively, maybe you shouldn't have, when you were 8 years old, hit your little brother. But that's a very similar kind of thing, to go into that and try to work with it by saying that's wrong or this is right. Or I wouldn't spend too much time there. The most important thing that I can see that you said is that you're working with it. You're working with your family, and you just said you see that a family member is dumping their negativity on somebody else. That's powerful awareness, especially if you do nothing with it. Don't step into it. I'm not saying if it got violent that you might have to step in there, but if you just notice that someone's doing that, then you could be supportive of both of those people, not by agreeing with them. It would be so very situational that I can't really come up with some kind of a protocol for how to handle it, other than receive as much as you can and respect people's confusion. More? Yuhong?
No, not for this. Thank you, Baoying. I have a follow-up question about Kai-Yun's asking about praising ourselves. I sometimes praise myself for things I do, for things I am able to finish before the deadline. So
Like a project you started and you finished it, that kind of thing.
yeah, could be. But if I praise myself, how should I be aware? Fine.
It's simple. You're just aware that you're doing that. You don't have to change it, correct anything. Just be aware of that. So anytime you take any position to try to correct or, most all of those are just keep the whole ping pong match going of relativity, right, wrong, up and down, back and forth. The one that I emphasize that does have some tension in it in the relative areas. Get your butt to the wall, sit down on the cushions, sit down, hold still, spend some time there. Spend some time it's like you put your mind in neutral and you're just going to let the engine run for a while and watch. Because if as long as you're moving your hands or moving your thought patterns or running your jaw, talking and so on, then it covers everything up. Covers up the fundamental nature of what this is. And so that's when I say don't miss your life by running this way, running that way, fighting, going to this, going to that, taking positions, being right, being wrong, accusing others.
Thank you. I have one more question. The question more of self-compassion. So my question is, what's the difference between praising ourselves and self-compassion?
Well, praising yourself is just that. You notice that you're something you've been having difficulty with. You're finally, I could say it this way to keep it in line with what's happening here is you notice that you were able to sit every day last week. So a little self-congratulation might happen there. But compassion might show up as not giving yourself a hard time when you go a whole week without sitting at all. It has to be awareness. If you jump to any conclusion about anything, if someone comes to me and says, I say, how much are you sitting? Because quite often I do that, especially in a private interview. How much you sit? And people often will start right out with saying, instead of saying 3 hours a week or 15 hours a week or 22 hours a week, or I haven't sat at all in 3 weeks. If somebody tells me I haven't sat at all in 3 weeks, that is not incorrect. That's not something they're doing wrong. Even if they've been a meditator for 15 years. That is very, very situational. And I teach this a little bit differently than other people, perhaps. But I say, once you enter this path, you're on this path, especially if you've received these vows and you've decided you're going to do this, you're going to learn this, you're going to study this, you're going to understand the Buddha's Dharma, no matter what it takes. If you have that kind of intention, then whatever happens is exactly what needs to happen. Don't look for correct and incorrect. And if you do see correct and incorrect, just look at it, but don't look for it. Look at it, but don't look for it. In other words, if it shows up in all of its gleaming majesty, then just receive, just respectfully receive everything that comes. Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. That kind of an attitude, which of course you have complaints. You're upset, nothing's working, you feel bad, your neighbors are unruly, and your housemate or whoever you live with are causing all kinds of difficulty. But thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. Very, very difficult to do that. And then you notice when you do that, you don't really mean it, but that's not the idea. That's ego stuff. So you actually, by doing that, you actually see the sharp edges of ego coming up and say, I don't really care about anybody. I don't know what this bodhisattva path is. I basically hate people. I've had people that are practicing for, I'm not exaggerating, 30 or 40 years say they hate people. I'm just tired of people. And what do I say? Awareness. It's always about awareness, never about what shows up in it. It's the awareness that's powerful. It's the sky that is the truth, not the clouds, the sky. Just another kind of a silly metaphor, but it seems to work if you can see that your awareness about it is what's important. You may have to, and when I say don't miss your life, you may have to acknowledge a lot of really negative, smelly crap in your mind stream that has a source that you can't find. You look for the off switch, there isn't one. You look for the plug, you can't pull the plug. And what should you do with that? Just receive it. Just receive it, no matter how it smells. Receive it. Be responsible. That's a kind of responsibility that I'm talking about. It's not about blame. It's not about cause and effect. It's in your mind stream, but there's no self there.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.
When you're bowing, when is receiving no longer necessary? Bowing.
When you see you're not separate from anyone, then you may show up as receiving. It may not. May look more like you're not doing anything. Nothing's happening. One who sees what this is doesn't see anything else. And it's not some kind of fancy woo-woo thing that you're going to write a book about. You just know it. You see it, you know it. And it has been said before, way before this old man showed up, is it's like you're not here anymore. It's like you've already passed away. You already have died because this is such an illusion, and your body is such an illusion, and it's not like a acid trip, or it's not that. It isn't, it's not that entertaining. It's actually not so entertaining. It's just flat, but you see it, and you see all of the shiny parts and the dull parts, and without personalizing anything. You're still here. You still have eyes, you still have ears, you still have fingertips, and you receive all of this, but there's no one receiving it. There's no personhood anymore. So therefore this is unreal. It's vividly unreal and intense. More if you have it. You can go further in that.
When you're bowing, is receiving action? Bowing.
Receiving, there's the ground, path, and fruition. The ground is suffering. This sucks. What can we do about it? And then there's the path, which is what the Buddha was pointing at. And then there's the fruition. And the ground is suffering, and the path is receiving the suffering, receiving whatever shows up, and awareness, awareness, awareness. What was it? What was your question?
Is receiving action?
Yes, until we come to fruition, and then nothing happens. And there's no one received anything. There was never any receiving done. The whole thing completely comes apart, falling apart, falling apart, falling apart. Everything all at once. Nothing to do. It's like saying there's no one to do anything. You might still make lunch. You still might vacuum the floor. You might do all kinds of things. You might watch The Seven Samurai like we did last night. Yes, sir.
Milka Bowing, some questions from YouTube. Brian A asks, Brian Bowing, is the floor real? Are the walls real? What is real?
The floor and the walls are relatively real. They're right here. You can take two things and bring them together, and then make a third thing, the sound. So the whole thing is a participation mystique. It's everything is participating in this illusion to. It's like a stage set that is really well orchestrated. This is why it fascinates us to see movies where someone has created a whole illusion of reality, and we're mesmerized by it. But at the same time, we know that eating our popcorn, we know that this isn't real, but it's just fascinating to us. So we watch it. Your life is very similar in that way, and the floor is relatively real, but it's ultimately is not real. It's not substantial. It's going away. It's constructed. It's the imaginary nature. Parikalpita is the fancy word for that. So just to go into those three, there's the dependently arisen, and then there's the imaginary nature, Paratantra, Parikalpita, and then there's Parinishvana, which is the ultimate understanding or the perfected nature, where you see paratantra, you see what those are, and this is, then you see reality, which is not anything at all. There's nothing there. There has to be an otherness. There has to be a viewer and something viewed in order for the illusion of duality to continue. And if you train your mind to see there's no solid self, the next thing it shows up, there's no solid other, and there's just consciousness only. So things may be coming and going, but they're unreal. You're no longer particularly concerned about, as you heard me say a few minutes ago, about how you feel. This doesn't mean that your heart isn't breaking. When I say I'm saying in this mind stream, but you're not concerned. You see deeply why. You see the dependent origination of why that is showing up in that way, because it is dependently arisen, not because it has any kind of special authority.
Brian A has some more questions. Is awakening part of dependent origination? If so, is it true there's no choice to make whether to practice or not?
Shut up. How's that for dependent origination? As long as there's a being sitting here, that's my response to that is, I respectfully listen to your question, but the way you've tied up a knot there's no way. It's like you're so interested in getting some kind of a relative statement that will support wherever it is you're trying to go with this, which is to be somebody getting somewhere, understanding something. It's worse than that. So if I come back to the question, what was the question? Read it again.
Is awakening part of dependent origination?
No.
If so, is it true there's no choice to make whether to practice or not?
Yes.
And then he also asks, will it happen on its own?
There is no own. Its own. That's like its own over there and its own over here. No, it won't. You need to have the intention. Without the intention, it's circles. I want it, I don't want it. I want it, I don't want it. For millennia, 400 years. Long time. And yet nothing happens. There's no time. But if you look at it from the point of view of time, then there's 400 years. Or then there's whatever that collection of that structure of reality, the illusion of space, the illusion of from here to there, time, the illusion of a kind of dimension. This is why I often talk about the invention that I came up with many years ago about the purple alligator in the kitchen. I just created that in everyone's mind, or I reminded you that I created it 15 years ago. And is that real or unreal? It's always there. Interesting area about consciousness. There's some aspect of consciousness that is eternal. And that's a relative statement about something that's very, very difficult to even comment on. But it's not so much that it's eternal, it's that it's the whole construct of time is seen through. So of course, there isn't anything that is eternal. And of course, nothing lasts. You would have to look at it that way. Otherwise, we're caught in one end or other end of the teeter-totter seesaw.
Gabriel Bowing.
Yes, sir.
When we're engaging with media, there's often images and stories that are being shared about the horrors of humanity and what we are inflicting on each other. When we feel the despair of it, what should we do with that?
Just feel it.
Bowing, when we feel that and it becomes overwhelming, are we to keep engaging with it?
I mean, should we keep watching CNN?
Yeah. Should we keep watching?
A little bit. Stay with the world. Don't go to the mountaintop, close the door to the cave and stay there and try to attain enlightenment there. Do it here. Do it right in the environment. We have our own temporary cave right here. Starts up every morning. Sit down, hold still, watch the movement, then get up, go, take out the garbage, wash dishes, vacuum the floor, talk with other people, study the Dharma as it's been taught down through the centuries, agree, disagree, however you want to do that. Ask questions of the teacher, listen to what the teacher says, consider what the teacher says. I don't know if you can do I don't know if you can see fundamentally what this is without a teacher, but the teacher may not do anything other than just push you so that you keep saying, no, right here, look here. No, don't look over there, look right here. That might be all they do, because you have to see it. And if you have a dense fog of projections and ideas and conclusions and opinions that are coming from beginning of time, starting and immediately with how you were treated by your mom, or how you were treated by someone in your whole family or cultural milieu that was really suffering themselves horribly and didn't know what to do with it other than get rid of it by inflicting it on others by way of abuse, by way of anger, by way of backhanding you. All of that stuff, they're suffering too. This would give you a little bit of a clue in a very strong relative and distasteful way that this is all dependently risen. This causes that, causes that, causes that. Not just someone backhanding you, causing you to fall down and feel hurt or threatened or insecure or unsafe for your childhood. But it goes even further than that. It's an incredible extent to which this happens right into people like they're doing today, trying to take over things, try to return to the Second World War with all of that stuff that happened there. Trying to do that again. So watch the news a little bit, but not too much. And if you need to do something about that, then go ahead and do it. I wouldn't say don't do this or don't carry a protest sign or write a letter to your congressman. Of course, participate in that, but do it also and train your mind so that you're not doing what most of the world is doing, is shoving their negativity onto others through blame, shoving their negativity onto others through trying to control them, trying to push them, pull them with whatever, with money, with power, with whatever. Don't do it. Find out who you are, so you're responsible for any negativity that arises in your mind, in your mind stream, and you're not particularly blaming anyone more.
I suppose I'm particularly asking about something that happened earlier for me today, is watching a mother holding her child dying.
Yes.
And we're not to hold it nor push it away.
What's your question? I heard you. I might have saw it. If that was on the news, I might have seen it myself. What's your question?
What are we to do when the pain is too overwhelming?
I could say many things that you may have thought of. Change channels. Look at, but be aware that you're doing it. It's the awareness that's important, not staying there and looking at that no matter what. So eventually you go as crazy as the person who created such a thing. But just receive that as much as you can. Get to the wall as much as you can. Train your mind to see clearly. Study with a community of people who are all different personalities. That's why studying with Sangha is like, these people, these people will not be your friends. They're spiritual friends. So therefore, it may not particularly be comfortable to be around all the time. But when you say, I'm not trying to disagree with what you're saying, because I do understand what you're saying, but there are mothers and children dying everywhere. Right down here in our hospital, a few blocks away, that could be happening today. But the causes and conditions there don't have that political situation where we're suddenly all enraged about the otherness who won't straighten up and fly right and do the right thing. It's a hard one. My father was killed in World War II, was shot off the back of a tank by a German machine gun and died at age 26. But I'm not blaming the Germans for that, the whole nation or any particular person. It's just there is no explanation for that other than that's unreal. And it's vividly unreal because it happened. Just like what you saw, the child. It's not about, well, just don't think about it necessarily, but it's just go ahead and feel that. And then train your mind so that anything you do in the world won't add to that kind of passion, aggression, ignorance, confusion, and disturbance warfare. People tend to go to war with if they see a really illegal war. That's kind of a silly thing to say. Yeah, that war is illegal. Let's get one of those legal wars where it's okay to kill people. So we just want to be right, and there are whole political parties that will be happy to help you with that. More?
You answered. Thank you.
Train your mind, hold still, watch what moves, see the truth yourself. Is there a final question anywhere? And thank you for all of these questions. Susan, you don't have a question?
Susan Bowing. So my question is this. I heard you say to see, you need to something like we need to see who we are so we can't be fooled by anyone, or maybe you said anything, but how do we know we're being fooled, Bowing?
We start to take a position on anything based on this, on coming to any kind of a conclusion about anything. It's not that there aren't relative conclusions. If you're in a house and you smell smoke, you probably should leave the house because it could be on fire. Those very simple things are happening all the time, all over the place. You're being abused by your boss, maybe you need to quit that job, or in a relationship, similar situation. So I'm not sure how I can say something more would be more helpful. Maybe if you have a different angle on that question.
Susan Bowing, thank you. So are we always being fooled by everything that's in front of us?
Yes.
Bowing.
Yes, unless you see what it is. And if you see what it is, then you don't take positions on anything anymore because you see that everything is dependent. It isn't, you actually see it. This is in the three natures. This is called the perfected nature. Paranishpana. It's just that you see dependent origination, you see the imaginary addition. The dependent origination is something that arises in your mind unbeckoned or unasked for, and then you add your comments to it or your condiments. It's this, it's because of this. I shouldn't feel this way. I should feel this way. Well, here I go again. All the other comments that causes this dependent origination to have some kind of special relative validity in your mind stream, simply put. And to see what this is, which you can do through the sitting practice of meditation, study of the Buddha's Dharma, the awakened truth that the Buddha taught and that is being taught here, is you can see the truth yourself, and then the warfare just stops because there's no duality. You need two things. You need right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, success and failure, subject, object. And when that is seen through, you just see that everywhere you look, you don't see an enemy anywhere. You don't even see a friend anywhere. You don't see anything other than consciousness. And how does that show up? It shows up as your own mind stream. Whether it has stuff running around in circles in it or not, doesn't matter. You're no longer concerned with how it feels, how your personal feelings are happening. Until that happens, you will be at the mercy of your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, your opinions, your judgments, your evaluations, your hope and your fear, on and on and on, like most of the world is running on that. Right and wrong. There's no such thing. And so the way go ahead, please.
No, I don't want to interrupt you.
You already have. Go ahead.
Sorry, Susan Bowing. So, Sokuzan, listening to you, I wonder, why do we take things so seriously? Why do we take things so seriously? Bowing.
I would go back to a similar answer I gave a little while ago. It's fear. The fear fear of being wrong, fear of being put upon, fear of disappearing, fear that our consciousness, our presence, that which we're looking in the mirror as we're brushing our teeth, that reality that is so intense and so strong and is reinforced by everything from a migraine to banging our elbow against the cabinet and hurting our elbow, and we're constantly, because of cause and effect and relative truth, constantly saying to us that we're here and you're doing something and you can make a mistake and you should be appreciated or you shouldn't be disrespected, and all of the different things that run around in our mind stream. Fear of being criticized, fear of being wrong. You've even mentioned before something about fear of speaking up in the Dharma study groups that we have when we're studying a particular book. You're not now. Now you've adjusted to that and you're participating. But for a while there, you were hesitant about speaking up because my interpretation or my memory is not maybe what you would say now, but that you were concerned about you might not really understand what was even being discussed. Was that correct?
Susan Bowing, yes. I mean, I was afraid maybe somebody had already asked the question and I hadn't been paying attention. Maybe I wasn't smart enough to understand the material. You know, all those ridiculous stories that your mind tells you why you shouldn't do something about.
Yes, that's ego, fear of being. And if you see what this is, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It's about the simplest way you can say it. If you see that you're not separate from anything, this is an illusion, then that part of the illusion that functions as a self or as an ego it's also unreal. Everything is unreal. So you don't, even if someone makes fun of you, you see some humor in it. Even if someone is critical of something you said or did. That's why I used to say, and still say occasionally, I say, if you see bullshit over here, I say, come and get me. I don't want to fight with you. I'm saying, but let's help each other. Let's learn. If you see somewhere where I'm trying to get you to join my cult or get you to believe something I'm saying, then let's talk about this. Let's do this together. It's a spiritual path. And as far as I'm concerned, the Sangha is about communication, not about covering up and everybody follow the party line. This is quite often what was happening in Shambhala. It was a great organization. The teacher was my root teacher, guru. And so powerful. It's just that eventually it got so that if you didn't follow the party line, then they wouldn't really talk with you and communicate with you. It happened to me. I was actually relieved of my position as a longtime student of Trungpa by someone who was the secretary to Sakong Mifam, just told me to stop doing that. So I did. Stop teaching a study group that was Shambhala based. But it doesn't have to be any warfare about it. We could just relate with a warfare that's in your mind without outflows, and that's hard. In other words, don't blame anybody for how you feel. Your feelings are yours, even if it's an obvious thing that they've done or said that anybody standing in the room would agree. Yeah, they were abusing you or being disrespectful to you. That would be a hard lesson, especially when you have agreement.
Yuhong Baoying, how can we understand the pain might be from past lives, even though it's also dependent reason? Baoying.
Yeah, understanding needs to be based on consciousness or awareness. Just receive it. It's just a ball of something, a thought, a memory, a clump of something that is arising in the mind that we can sense there's some kind of separation to it, and just receive that. That is part of the entire matrix of dependent origination and of the imaginary nature or the ego style of pushing, pulling, shutting down, opening up, cursing this and praising that, blaming, praising, all of this structure that happens. It's all reified, justified by all of us talking about it and chattering and visiting with each other. This is why I think I feel that the book studies are so valuable. We take something like the Diamond Sutra or the Heart Sutra, or the teachings of any teaching or any teacher in the past or in the present, and we take those and we talk about them. We share our understanding and our lack of understanding. Seems to be very helpful. Certainly has helped me over the last long period of time.
Thank you. I have one more question, if possible. I
Go ahead.
want to understand the dying child in the mom's arms, just for example. And you mentioned that when the question arose, you mentioned that there are many people are dying. Just this is what's happening. So when I hear that, somehow I felt I was not able to totally immerse in the situation, just deeply in the situation. Somehow something blocked my heart, say, oh, there's so many deaths, even at this moment. So could you help me, what blocked my heart when I hear that sentence?
It doesn't matter what it is. The cause, it's just that. If you go to cause, then you're looking for other, then you increase the polarity of it. It's not that there wasn't a relative cause, of course there is. But if you go there, you're trying to repair or fix or stop blocking. Be aware of it. Just be aware. Be genuine. I've not gotten rid of anything. I'm the same pile of confusion that I was decades and decades and decades ago. It still comes and goes, still looking for somebody that gives a damn about it. The only thing I care about is to help you. I want to help you see your true nature. That's what I'm here to do. If you want that kind of help, I'm all about that. And if you want to do something else, I'm all about supporting you there.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for the question. And let me say, before we close, I want to say that what you're telling me, what I'm hearing, what I receive from you, and I receive quite a bit. You know, even the people that aren't asking questions, that just have a what do they call those avatars? They have an avatar up there. I'm receiving from those too. Not thoughts. I'm not talking about thoughts or content or biography. I'm just talking about receiving everything. Everything is this. Everything is this. You can't hide out. There is no hiding place for anything. So what I'm hearing from you, it's not particularly a compliment, but I think you are doing what you need to do. I don't have anything to say to you to adjust you this way or that way. Just continue. Return to the teacher, which you're doing. Return to the teaching, which you're doing. Return to this community or the Sangha, which you're doing. And then the same thing happens in your family situation. Just receive as much as you can. You may not be a success story to yourself, but you don't have to be a success story. There is no success. Spiritual progress is not relative. That's materialism. The progress that's happening there is that you just continue. Return as long as you're alive. Return. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, for attending this Dharma talk. Thank you for all of your help in supporting this community, both by attending, by practicing, and by financially supporting us. We need your help. Please continue if you can.